This computer. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ninth episode of Darts Connect and Musings podcast, where I meet and talk to people that I met during my work and my not just work, my pleasure, my pastime as the producer, presenter, and promoter of cultural events in the greater Philadelphia area. And because I'm Darts Connector, I'm connecting to very different people. I can talk one day to American classical singer, or singer of American classical books, songs about Mario Lanza. And another day, it's a conversation with owner and promoter of Museum of Interesting Things. And but I actually made a point to explore one topic a little bit in depth because this spring actually, I was heavily involved in work of Philadelphia Arts and Culture Task Force when we were fighting for a budget for arts and culture in Philadelphia, and where I met quite a few interesting people. If you can check my previous episodes where I started to explore this topic, conversation with Councilman David O in our new studio. Unfortunately, this Delta variant on the rise, we put a kind of little pause on live recording, so I'm on Zoom again. And this time, my guest is lovely Ciarra Lambert, also known as Queen Joe.
Thank you for having me, Mikhail. Hi, everybody.
Hey. Yeah, and I can tell you, I'll be completely honest with you that type of art that you're doing always been completely foreign to me. Not because I'm from Ukraine originally, because but maybe because of my upbringing, I'm more into.
It is okay. So
Yeah.
I am a rapper first and foremost. And outside of being a rapper, I'm also somewhat of a promoter and a host. So if you noticed, a lot of my team included members of Nightlife, and Nightlife members are, people who control entertainment after 10 p.m. So that is, again, people who promote events, people who host events, usually a lot of rappers, a lot of dancers, but usually different kinds of dancers, right? There are more break dancers, there are more, there's break dancers, there's go-go dancers, there are house dancers. Again, most of the people who control the entertainment after 10 p.m. I think that, and so it was really exciting to me to go on this journey and meet new people, because I feel like where we live in Philadelphia, those two entertainment worlds are disconnected. And the only people who are part of both worlds, I would say, are jazz musicians, because jazz musicians both play in the daytime, right? Or when they're on tour. And then they end up having to play jazz bars at night because they'll have to, make ends when they're not on tour.
Yes, it's interesting. It's an interesting observation because my last event, actually my first event this year that ended just last Wednesday, was a jazz presentation. We call it Jazz Meets Opera in Philadelphia, in the Mansion. That's what I'm trying to do. I understand perfectly well that there's art, there's good music, and there's bad music. There's no such thing as different art forms. You can mix and match. I've seen rappers play, working with violin players and with ballet dancers. And in America's Got Talent, last one, as there was a group of guys with one rapper, one soul music, and two country guys. That was amazing. It was amazing energy. So I'm all for it. That's why I call my organization Multicultural Arts Exchange. So we try to do that. So, but tell me, you actually didn't you name your artistic prowess and your time preference. And I'm night person as well. I work at night all my life, maybe except last several years. I only completely different industry. But uh, in your biography, one of the first things that caught my eye was you call yourself femcee.
Mm-hmm.
So can you
Yes.
elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah. So, so an MC isn't just a rapper, it's someone who can rock the crowd, control the crowd, is somebody who has a specific presence to be able to have control of a particular event, right? And so because I both host events and I perform at events, I would consider myself to be an MC. There's a lot of crowd participation in what it is that I do. Now, the reason why I put the F in front of it is because I'm also a feminist. And I think that when we think about rappers, especially hip hop music, it is a male dominated genre. And I think that even when you do have a lot of women rappers, a lot of men write their rhymes. And for me, you can tell because the message to me isn't always on point. So I think that it's really unique sometimes to rap from a woman's perspective, have the woman write it, have the woman do the melodies, right? Choose the topics. And it is a very woman forward perspective in the way that I create. So that's where the femcee part comes from.
Okay, good. That's interesting, the distinction. And for me, it's kind of especially interesting because, again, rap was always very difficult to understand. Again, language barrier and cultural barrier. But lately, and especially lately, I noticed a lot of rappers started to change the tone. It's, instead of just promoting violence and guns and street culture and stuff, they started to talk about important social issues. So it's and you you actually confirming this, and that's good. So I apparently understood something right in
Yes.
American culture.
Yeah.
Okay, now since we have a little bit short on time because you mentioned you're moving and you're going to
Dance rehearsal.
dance rehearsal. It's important, incredibly important. I want to kind of pivot to your role in arts and culture task force.
Sure.
So how did it happen? What was the story behind you becoming involved in this
Yes.
in this group and how you became co-chair?
So how I got involved was, Philadelphia zeroed out the budget. Everyone knows this. But for me, especially seeing a lot of my friends, again, when you work in nightlife and COVID happens, and everybody can't go outside, meaning everybody can't go out at night. A lot of my friends just lost a lot of money. And people had to move out of their homes, move to their parents' homes, all sorts of things. And so for me, I think a lot of people in the Philadelphia political space are jaded. They just feel like nothing will ever change. So they just roll with the punches and rightfully so, right? Like there's been a lot of years, progress is very slow. But for me at the time, I was like, okay, this is ridiculous. I want to find out whose fault it is. So I would just go on Instagram, do these long rants. I would have interviews. I would do informational kinds of things. And then I would tag all of the politicians and everybody whose fault I thought it was. And I would troll them. And then some
It's
of
an
them,
interesting,
yeah,
a very interesting definition of trolling. Okay.
yes. so after I did that for a while, they reached back out to me because people kept responding to me, right? Like if you troll them, but nobody picks it up, then nobody cares. But if you troll people and like a ton of people are jumping in the conversation, which happens, then they're forced to pay attention. And so then some of them contacted me. They contacted me to tell me I was right about some things, I was wrong about some things, and whatever else. And it was really interesting too, because even when they contacted me, I remember the first thing I said was, just because you contacted me doesn't mean I'm your friend. I still don't know you. And I mean, they met me with the same with the same approach, because they were like, all right, well, you're saying that you know so much, prove it. If you know this community like you're saying you know this community, then we're going to hold a town hall meeting and you should come and you should invite a whole bunch of people. So I did that, right? Like I invited a bunch of people, I created my own promo, I put out as much as I could to have people come and show up to this conversation, and they allowed me to lead it. And so after the first time that I led it, there were 80 people on the call. And then the second time I led it, it was also another 80 people on the call.
Was it, I'm sorry, Sarah, was it like the December of 2020 or even earlier?
I'm gonna say it was earlier. It was probably maybe like October.
Okay.
Yeah, like October. And yeah, and so after like the second one of those, Isaiah had said that he was going to make he said, this is what he said verbatim. He said, I'm going to work as hard as you guys work. So I will put together, figure out what it is so you guys can start a task force, because I think that'll work. But I'm only going to do as much work as you're going to do. So if you guys don't do any work, I'm not going to do any work. You guys do the work, I'll try to support you when you do the work.
Okay,
so,
and I'm sorry, I'm sorry interrupting, but when you say Isaiah, you mean Isaiah Thomas?
Yeah.
Councilman Isaiah Thomas. He was
Yes.
actually he was in line to be interviewed for this podcast, but unfortunately they need to reschedule.
Yeah, he's been super busy recently. Yeah, but yeah, so that happened. And then, oh yeah, so he committed to it. Cool, great. He also said during that time, if anybody, well, actually, yeah, on the last call, he said, if anybody wants to be on the task force, please email me. Or if you want to nominate someone that you think should be on the task force, please nominate them. So that happened, and I guess they got a lot of things. And I just assumed that, I would be on it. But they decided, and by they, I mean the council members, because in order for someone to be the chair of a committee, the council members, you have to have like a majority of them select the same person. And so because I did the call, they selected me. Before they even asked me, they just selected me. So I was the first chairperson. Now, to be honest, I've never chaired anything in my life. I had no idea what to expect. I've never written a proposal before. I had none of that. But I figured that I really would like a really good team. So I created a bunch of flyers, same as I did before. Like, if you want to be a task force member or you want to nominate someone, do that. And I promoted it for like 2 weeks. And then whoever, I think that they received maybe like 250 applications.
Wow.
And then, yeah, between applications and nominations.
Okay.
And then they called me in November and was like, okay, at first they thought that we were going to have each council member select 2 to 3 people to be on the team, and I wouldn't know who's on the team, right?
Okay. And I'm sorry again, when you're talking about council members, in addition to Isaiah Thomas,
Yeah.
who was involved?
Well, originally we wanted everyone to be involved. But
Mhm.
then David O had reminded us that that's not the way it works. Like it has to, like the council members can't, not for a task force, the council members can't like nominate people. Everyone has to be interviewed. So we canceled that part. And then we had to just sort through the interviews. And so we split up the interviews based on, we tried to diversify the group, right? Based on nightlife, based on diversity of age, color, region, all sorts of things. And then I myself interviewed 40 people. I know there are members of Isaiah's team who also interviewed people. And I don't know how many people, but I would assume that they have probably also interviewed 40 people. Plus, we put them back to back, 15 minutes. And then we ended up with 18. We only wanted 15, but we ended up with 18, which ended up being really good because after the first 2 weeks, I'm gonna say 2 people dropped out because they just didn't realize how much of a commitment it was to, be on the task force. The first one, we had our first meeting in December. And then after that, we were having meetings 2 to 3 times a week. And they would be, and for me, 2 to 3 times a week was 6 times a week because only half of my team could meet at 1 o'clock. The other half of my team had to meet after 5, and for me to try to juggle that, my 40-hour work week and my own artistic career was insane. But
I can only imagine.
Right. But, that's why we eventually, had to get more volunteers, right, to participate, because trying to get all of that stuff done by March, it almost seemed impossible.
Okay, yeah, that's when we decided to split into four groups, and that's when I actually started to get involved. So can you tell me the rationale, behind this division, behind those 4 groups? Because for me they were a little bit, but let's say interesting.
Sure.
Yeah.
So once we had my original task force, we did 2 Zoom meetings where we heard from the community and they talked about the things that they wanted to change, right? Because we figured that whatever the majority of people wanted to talk about would be what we would focus on. But what happened was there would be people who wanted things that were so specific. And so when you do things like that, you end up having to group them in categories, or else there's no way you can do it, right? Like there are people who were like, we want to focus on the fact that they're getting rid of light rooms, right? And rehearsal spaces. And it's like, okay, yes. But then there are also people talking about, okay, we have a program with kids and it's not funded. And then if you focus on like the smaller things, there will be a ton of things. There will be a ton of things. There's no way we could tackle that.
Ciara, let me just ask you a little thing.
Yeah.
When you're talking, somehow, I don't know, maybe you do something with your hands, light is dim. So you're becoming dark. Yeah, like right now.
I'm sorry, I'm like in my living room. I would be in my room, but there's a ton of boxes.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, there would just be a ton of things. So we wrote everything down over the course of 2 Zooms, and we put them into categories so that we could try to touch as many things as possible. And the 4 categories, that we came up with was permanent change, which comes at a political level, a government level, and an organization level, right? When it comes to how people distribute money, who's distributing money, when there's distributing money, focusing on, the budget and permanency. There was that one. Then there was the kids, right? The youth. the youth organization, because the youth want a specific plan, right? They can't put on their own shows. They want to be able to make money from their art too. And so we had to figure out something for the youth, right? Then there was individuals and small organizations. That is one that I wasn't on that team, but I was very passionate about making sure
It was my team. Yeah, it was my team. Mhm.
Yes, I was very passionate about making sure that that was a team, because I feel like those people were the most affected by the pandemic. And then there was a nightlife team. And again, that's where I'm from. And I feel like the nightlife team just completely gets wiped off of the artist shelf, because we usually participate after 10. So I figured that everything that we did, it could go into those categories. And some of the work that some of the teams did explore, more than one topic within those 4 categories. If I had a chance to do it over again, I would love to have more time, because when you have more time, you could see what is actually doable, right? Like trying to hold meetings with people for 20 minutes and ask the right questions and get to the right thing is really, really, really hard. Yeah.
Ciara, do you know that there is still music industry task force, right? And music industry task force existed for 2 years.
Yes, but are
2
they
years, and
still?
they were, and when I talked to David, that David Oko was actually initiating this task force. He told me that they were working for 2 years. They were supposed to have a meeting introducing their findings on March 13 or 14 of 2020. And everybody knows what happens then. So they had 320 people sign up to participate in this meeting, and it didn't happen. So they already had a lot of things kind of figured out. So I'm not sure if you were able.
Yeah, so the thing is, we actually saw their proposal. It was sent to us, so we saw it. We know what they did and what they covered. And I'm gonna say 2 of the things that they had on there was similar to the things that we had on there. But the difference between what they do and what we do is that music is one genre. We focus on all genres. And I think that also a lot of the time, or a lot of the things that they were basing on, was performance, right? Music as performance, and a lot of the language around it was about equity within performance. And I think that that's important too. But I think that when you speak more generally, it's more nuanced, because I don't think that art is treated the same, right? I don't think that musicians get, I don't think that in the world of public and private funding, that musicians and painters and dancers are equal.
No, actually, I know this for a fact because I've been involved mostly with performing arts, which is nonprofit. But lately, I've been also involved with several groups who are for-profit musicians, and I, kind of beginning to understand their language. It's completely different financing model. It's completely different industry. It's completely, even though I don't think it should be. But it's a topic. It's a topic for a different conversation and a deep one. And deeper, I have an idea about this. I would like to discuss with you outside of this podcast, maybe at some point.
Yes.
But just okay. So, and I understand that during this meeting, you were in touch with a lot of politicians that you were previously trolling, right? You had a chance to meet them in face to face or via Zoom. And so, can you tell me about this experience?
Yeah. So I think that somebody said something once to me, and it didn't ring true until this experience. And somebody told me that I was different because I think that the right things should be done just because the right things should be done, right? And there are other people who use the right things to be done as bargaining chips for other things to be done. And I didn't pick up on that, or I didn't know that was like such a strong thing. And I know people critique politicians all the time, right? People don't trust them and all those other things. But when you look at them as deal makers, it's strange. It's strange, but it doesn't necessarily have to be negative. So I've learned a lot about the way they speak, how they bargain, who they're bargaining with. I learned what lobbyists do. I also learned that I don't really like lobbyists like that. So yeah, but then you also get to see what they're passionate about, right? And then when you find out what they're passionate about, like individually, you can find a connection with either one of them, right? Like Isaiah cares a lot about equity. He does streets, he cares about the youth, right? He'll say every day, I don't know anything about art, but he'll get really interested if you're like, all right, there are kids, or there's equity issues here, or such and such is going on with financial or poverty here, then he's like cued in, right? And you can do the same thing a lot with David O, right? David O cares about the arts, but he cares about it in a way in which the arts can bring finances here, right? Like he cares about how we can connect with other global economies and whatever to be able to like bring some sort of money in exchange for art kind of thing. And so if you want to talk to him, then you're talking about international business, right? And then if you can include international business in your music, he's all ears. The same thing with a lot of different, politicians, but it's very much a communication game, right? Like you really have to know your audience. You really have to know how to appeal to people's better nature. I think, at the end of the day, politicians are people. They're humans.
Okay, Ciara, on this positive note, on this endorsement of politicians as people, which is highly unusual, I can admit. I know you're in a rush. You asked me for time limit, and we're like 4 minutes over. So we will need to continue this conversation at some point. But
Yes.
not for now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your being with us. I really appreciate your passion. And we'll definitely talk again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mikhail, for having me. And thank you for volunteering with us. I hope that if, we move forward within the fall, that you will participate in some manner.
I definitely will. I definitely will. And I hope at some point you'll make to one of our events. We're just restarting the season in Northeast.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I got, both my vaccinations, and I'm finally trying to, get back to my normal schedule. So I am looking so forward to it. I've already heard great things about it.
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.